Everybody, this is Jeff McDonald, and this is the Spotlight Lecture on Social Psychology. We're going to look at some of the basic ideas of social psychology, specifically Asch's conformity experiments and Milgram's experiments. So what is social psychology? Social psychology is the scientific study of how we think about, influence, and relate to each other. A lot of psychology is looking at the individual's behavior. Social psychology looks at the individual's behavior in relationship to other people using scientific methods, research, experimentation. It looks to see what kind of things influence us and why people act differently in different situations. What are those things that influence our behavior? What are those things that kind of explain some of our behaviors? So the two studies we're going to look at are the Asch's experiments and the Milgram experiments. So Solomon Asch did this experiment using 8 people, 7 people which were Confederates, which were working with Asch, 1 person being the actual participant of the study. And they would show them these three lines on the right and the line on the left, and they'd say, okay, which of the 3 lines on the right is the same as the line on the left? And they would do this in a group, and they would do it about 18 times. They would do these trials, but then 12 of them, the Confederates, the other 7 people, would give the wrong answer intentionally. And what Asch was trying to see was how often would someone go along with the wrong decision of the group, even if they knew it was wrong. They did those experiments, or those trials 12 times where the 7 people gave the wrong answer. And 1/3 of those subjects went along with the incorrect answer. Of those 12 trials, 75% of those subjects, not the Confederates, but the person that was actually not in on it, went along and conformed with the group at least once. Now, 25% of them never conformed, but 75% of them actually conformed at least once. And it was really interesting because, Asch wondered, why is it that people will give the wrong answer even though they know it's the wrong answer? And these were some things that he used to kind of explain it. They would feel incompetent or insecure, that why would everybody else be wrong? We come from a society that we think, well, everybody must be right. If I think it's something else, I must be wrong. He also found when the group had at least 3 other people that did this, they were more likely to agree. And if everybody in the other group, like if the 7 people, if you're the only one that's not in on it, and the 7 Confederates all said the same wrong answer, then you were much more likely to say the wrong answer. Whereas if it's split, they wouldn't necessarily do it. If it was unanimous outside of yourself, they would be much more likely to agree. If they believed the group had a greater status or a greater attractiveness, they would be much more likely to agree. If they had not already committed to another response, they would agree with the group. Also, if they knew that people were watching them, they were being observed, they were more likely to agree. And, and why not? Our culture really rewards people for going along with the group, for respecting the social norms, respecting the social standards, following the rules, going along with the group. We accept some form of deviance, but not a lot. We like people to just kind of go along. And so when Asch compared this to a control group, in a control group where you had no idea how the other people answered, only 1% gave the wrong answer. But when you see what the other people are answering, and even though you believe it's wrong, 75 out of 100, you're much more likely to go along with that group. So let's talk about Stanley Milgram's experiments. Stanley Milgram does these experiments at Yale University, starts in 1961, and does it shortly after the beginning of the trial for Adolf Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann went on trial in Israel for crimes committed during the Holocaust. And people watched this, and Milgram looked at this and thought, why is it that people can do this kind of things? Why would people obey the orders of the Nazis and kill complete strangers? Is this something that's just found in the German mind, or is this something that everybody is capable of doing? in any society, would evil grow like this just from simple obedience? So he set up an experiment where he had a person called the teacher, person called the learner, and the learner was hired, paid before they came in, and told that they were basically involved in an experiment on reinforcement with learning. All they had to do is answer some questions, and they were hooked up to a machine that was had electric volts. The learner was hooked up to a machine, and they were given a shock for every wrong answer they gave. The teacher's job was to give the wrong answers, to give the electric shocks. They would read the question to the learner. If the learner got it wrong, they had to give a shock. Now, what the teachers didn't know is that the learner was the same person. The learner had a script. He was not actually getting shocks, but he was pretending that he was getting shocks. The teachers were the actual ones being tested. They wanted to see how far people would go in giving electric shocks to a complete stranger simply because someone in authority told them to do this. And as you can see from this chart, the majority of the participants continued all the way to the end to 450 volts, simply because they were told to by someone in the lab coat, the researcher, who had a clipboard, who just kept saying, teacher, you must continue. It's important that you continue. They were never really threatened. They were never really harassed. They were simply told that they must continue. They were assured that the learner was not, that the shocks were not really painful to the learner, even though they could hear the learner screaming, complaining about his heart bothering him, saying how much pain he was in, protesting this, banging over and over again. The teachers continued. 2/3 of them continued all the way to the end. And you can see the drop-off, that some did drop off between the slight and the very strong shocks. A number of them did drop off. But after that, most of them continued all the way to the end. This was a very powerful experiment because it really showed how well we obey authority. We do as we're told. The obedience was highest when the legitimate authority figure was perceived that way and they were giving orders. They were very close. It was also much more high obedience when it was done at a prestigious university like Yale. When they tried this in different locations that were not like that, the obedience kind of dropped off. The victim was depersonalized or at a distance. When they could see the victim, when they could see the learner getting shocked, a lot of that obedience dropped. But when they were in another room, they couldn't be seen. All they could be known is they could hear them. It really did increase the obedience level. And if they were all by themselves as a teacher, there was no other role model there that was saying, yeah, this is wrong, we shouldn't do this. Why are we doing this? I think this is wrong. There was no one else there to stand up with them to the researcher. They continued to obey at high levels. Very, very, very important study. Today would be seen as very, very unethical because of the deception that was there, and also that, can you imagine how you would feel if you were one of those people that went all the way to the end and found out, yeah, we just wanted to see how far you'd go to kill people if we just told you to. Because the very end, when they were given the triple X shocks at the very end, the learner often did not even respond, like he was dead, and the teachers continued to give the shock. So very, very important study in trying to understand people's personality and mind in terms of conformity and obedience. Well, that's it for this Spotlight lecture. I'm Jeff McDonald. We will see you next time. Thanks a lot.